So
Pretty
now
good.
let's get to this paper, Steve. Listen, I am so glad our physicist is back. And again, as I wrote on my channel, I gave myself a C-.
Look, guys, this was posted, by the way, today. Let's take a look at the date. The 22nd of December. Sorry. Published on the 22nd of December. 23rd. Okay. So, it seems like the rest of the researchers, that includes Wayne Steiger and Steve also, have kind of come on to my hypothesis that it is indeed the planet that's causing the extreme weather as it's getting closer. Initially, there was this, I think it was almost a diversion created by these other groups who have been designed to kind of derail the this movement that's taking momentum to fact finding and finding out the exact cause and the truth behind these anomalies. So they've been set up to undermine them. And what was published recently through other very competent researchers that actually picked it up and were sold on that theory is that there was this sort of energetic wave entering our solar system from somewhere else. Now, I mean, like I've told you, and I've maintained this, and I'll continue to do exactly the same. They have these little groups and organizations set up to dissuade and undermine the researchers who are trying to get to the bottom of the truth. And one of the things that they invented recently was this cosmic wave, as it were. Now, I certainly, you probably noticed, I've not shared any of that content because it was pretty damn clear to me that that was nonsense, and I could see where it was coming from as well and what the intention behind that was. So I didn't make any mention of that. What I did remain and held fast to was that it was a celestial body that was going to come very close to us, which was going to cause it. But they want us to look elsewhere so that we don't get to the bottom of the truth. At any rate, it seems like Steve, who's a very, very competent, I mean, he's gone leaps and bounds in terms of his research. And then Wayne Steiger, just as a competent individual. In fact, his father used to work for NASA. And then we've got this other chap who seems to be, who's who's part of this podcast. And it seems like he's got quite a lot to offer. But all these researchers are coming onto the same narrative and the same position that I was holding onto from the research that I was doing, and that was that it's a planet that's getting really close to us. And I've been pointing towards that. You've seen that in the two cellos, the show must go on, and then continually I've shared content on a celestial body getting close to us, a planet, not necessarily a star. The star is still up until the star is still sharing a barycenter with our sun, it's not going to cause any sort of damage to us. Yes, potentially the dwarf star, which is orbiting its own star, can cause quite a lot of disruption here on Earth as it goes on its orbit and comes into close proximity to us. But when it goes out in its trajectory, the primary star, that's when we'll see the lion's share of the cataclysmic events. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but this is my position. But as far as the planet is concerned, it seems like, subhanAllah, I was very, very, it seems like I'm pretty accurate. And I'll let these guys, now it's the physicist, by the way, it's not just these three guys, but we're a physicist who also shares my opinion as well. And this was just uploaded yesterday, by the way. And I've been maintaining this for a while now.
Because class is back in session. And listen, let's just go ahead and state for the record, I was wrong. I really thought that there was such a thing as a cosmic wave. I really did.
Guilty. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Look, and we're all getting a lot of misinformation.
See, there you go. So you got Wayne Steiger himself. He's a lovely guy, and self-admittedly, he also fell for this cosmic wave issue, and then you've also got Steve Olson as well, and this other gentleman who's part of the podcast. It seems the physicist has maybe got something to offer on this. We'll find out in a second.
It's okay.
Yep, so I was wrong, and thank goodness we have educated men and women who have the discipline and the degrees and the tenure. And as our physicist well pointed out, it's impossible for a cosmic wave to be forecast. It would travel at the speed of light. Yep. You wouldn't be able to see it. You wouldn't know it. And if there was an event that caused such a cosmic wave, it would have happened a long time ago.
Right, and again, this is probably the intuitive problem I was having with the information, and I should have listened to my first.
Also, another thing I'd like to add is any cosmic wave from any sort of a magnetar, which was the word being thrown around, which is a star that has imploded on itself, causing this cosmic wave. That cosmic wave would consist of particulates, and particulates don't move at the speed of light. Okay, light does, not particulates. So for them to then give us a estimate of when to expect that cosmic wave, and again, what was suspicious is how timely it was in relation to the at least estimates that I had in place of this planet coming into close proximity again and causing a considerable amount of earthquakes. Now, for our beloved ulama kiram, our scholars, this, let's see if my hypothesis is correct. I mean, I've shared this with you guys, alhamdulillah, and I've shared you the timelines as well, and I've shared you the cause as well. Now, let's see whether we actually get to see exactly what I've hypothesized, which is a considerable amount of earthquakes. Oh, by the way, interesting enough, it seems like they're not reporting the earthquakes anymore. Again, simply because they own and run those organizations, in as much as the Weather Channel, by the way, and please score a line underneath this, and don't take my word for it, is owned by the Rothschilds. We need to be asking questions why they would want to take ownership over the Weather Channel. Okay, and I've certainly got my opinion on that, and a response to why they would want to. At any rate, again, also I've mentioned that we'll experience extreme weather way in advance. Let's see if that happens. If that happens, then I'm pretty sure that I'm onto something compelling. And my concern again is that humanity, the Ummah, need to prepare. They need to be told about this, and the ulama ikram need to anticipate this. And they've got an onus, they've got the responsibility, subhanAllah, to at least give this some sort of credence and look at it under the light, the nur of Quran and Sunnah, and then possibly communicate that to the Ummah and inform them of just having contingencies in place. Like I said, all I'm asking is that the Ummah are foretold to have contingencies in place to move from any coastlines, 150 miles at least inland, and then be, as a very minimum, and this one isn't an educated, it's a guesstimate. There's nothing accurate about what I'm going to say next, but at least as a very, at the very least, we need to be 400 feet above ground. And that's just a shot in the dark, I'll be honest with you. I've not come up with that number from a process of elimination, but rather it's just a guess. It's the best that can be done. Looking at the geography of world maps and the height. This is the only way that you could reasonably expect people. I mean, if you asked everyone to be 1,000 feet above sea level, it'd be virtually impossible for them to do that world over. 400 feet is a reasonable order and something that is attainable by everyone, inshallah ta'ala, at least reasonably speaking. And for them to be in a place where they can do that, as well as have these sort of precautions in terms of non-perishable goods. Because, like I said again, I mean, I'm sorry, I really do not want to be the harbinger of bad news, but as I understand it, during the trajectory, they are looking to stage, the world leaders are looking to stage World War III at the same time and manufacture disease also stage a false extraterrestrial contact. That's a wild card. But let's see if let's just see how we get on from here till the end of December.
Things like I normally do, but it was like I was getting all this information coming at us. And let me kind of boil this down and see if I nailed the essence of this paper. And what I want to do is encourage people to go to Wayne Steiger's site. He did an in-depth discussion on it. I'll also do a separate video on this paper. But I think what we really are coming down to here is we're seeing evidence of an approaching brown dwarf star. The physicist says it's not important necessarily to be looking at the particle density that we see in these different illustrations, this particle density, because we saw it also in November, okay?
Yes.
And the Earth survived just fine, okay? And we've seen this in 2010 where the Earth got a direct shot.
Right.
And we're still here, okay? So first things first, in 2010, we did get hit by a bolt of this energy. So what is this circular high-density particle field that we've been seeing since 2010? The answer is it's the brown dwarf star slowly trying to equalize energy with our sun.
Right. Right.
Finally, and listen, we missed it. I missed it. You can't have an imbalance in nature. I don't care if it's a solar system or if it's a molecule.
It's a rule of duality.
Yes, thank you, John. And duality, when he says duality, think of a magnet with a north and a south pole on it, okay, guys? So when we say the word duality, what we're saying is there's no current, there's no energy, there's no frequency unless there's two differences of potential, positive and negative. And between those two is light. It's harmonic. It's frequencies. It's what holds the universe together, right? So in that idea, when you have an approaching brown dwarf star coming towards our not brown dwarf, we're still burning hydrogen fuel when this thing comes in, right? So we're not done with our fuel yet. This thing is burned out, though. As it comes in, it doesn't have fuel anymore, but it still has a difference of potential with our sun. So there's going to be interaction between those two stars, okay?
Yeah. But it doesn't have to have fuel. It just needs to be highly magnetic.
Right. And that's what brown dwarfs are. We know that they're highly magnetic, okay? We know that. So
Right.
in this, what's really important about this white paper, Wayne, and again, I'll show it on my channel in a separate video. I know you're showing it, and John, you're welcome to show it too, is that we've been noticing that the area of the sun with coronal holes has been increasing since 2010. That's the important story. And let me show you. So I go to the part of the paper where we look at the data from 2010, we did an in-depth study and table that showed that the area of the sun with coronal holes was running in or about 3 to 4%, okay, on average. So in 2010, we had, I would consider probably a normal or almost normal year if you're going to compare it to a 2,000-year trend. The second thing to notice about 2010, too, is that we were in the Maunder minimum already, okay? So the sun was already at a minimum, and now coronal holes start showing up on it. Okay? With me? Now, look what happens to this data, the area of sun with the coronal holes in it. Look what happens in the data from just recently. Here's November 1st through the 4th, and the area of the sun with coronal holes was running at 20%. That's a 17% increase
Yes.
in the number of coronal holes on the sun.
Yes.
That is going to affect weather. It's going to affect the warmth of the earth. It's going to affect our seasons. It's going to affect all the things that we've been seeing. Let me give you an example. We have, I would consider, a prematurely deep winter right now in the Northern Hemisphere. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
I'd agree.
Right? So here's might be the reason for that, guys. Look at this next table. This is now. This is December 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. It's most recent data. Our coronal hole number has gone up to 30%. So we had a dramatic, slow increase since 2010 and a dramatic increase between November and December of 2016.
Well, remember what I told you about the increase in earthquakes, too, for this month. And it's all going to relate because what's happening here is it's the sun's not really being drained, but its energy is being shared.
Shared, right.
And so we're not getting all of it. And this is why you're getting really dark periods too throughout the day. The day seems a little darker right now. It's not just because we're in the winter period. It's, the sunlight is actually getting darker. I think that this is why that simulator was put out in front of the sun, was to compensate the light differential.
Right. But it would be almost impossible for them to compensate for the heat differential, though.
Yes. But the light differential you can certainly compensate on, for sure. And you could compensate for heat in small areas. You couldn't compensate it in a large scale area because the simulator wouldn't be large enough.
Right. The question I keep getting at this in reading from the paper is, okay, so we're seeing increase of the coronal holes. That in itself is unleashing on any planet that gets into the firing zone. You don't even have to have any solar flare activity. You've got raw energy coming out of basically the core of the sun coming at us. That's increasing. If in fact it looks very well evident that something is, I like how you said that, John, is sharing the energy. And in any case, we know that they're going to balance themselves out. So my question now becomes this. What effects would we see with other astronomical, let's say, celestial objects in the neighborhood? Wouldn't that put our star and our planet at a weakened state?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, everything's going to be...
Okay, guys, I've shared the same video with you guys as well from Australia, from your Sky webcams of this anomaly being caught. I've shared it, subhanAllah, I've shared it with the Ulama Ikram as well.
In fact, that's a rule, right? I mean, there's no way.
Causality, right?
Yeah, there's no way to get around that. How much affected is the question? Like right now, what we see is an increase in luminosity with Venus, and it's really active right now. And I think because it's getting flooded with energy from these other bodies, because it's much closer to them, and besides, it's kind of a comet planet anyway. This thing is just really lighting up. And like I said before, when you look at it, what it looks like is like shimmering light through waves of water. And what you're seeing or witnessing is the frequency of the plasma.
So how much would we be able, and obviously we would, I'm answering my own questions. I'm sure we've got satellites out there, whether it's Cassandra or others, that are actually analyzing the protons coming off the sun, knowing that we're still burning hydrogen, right? We haven't started burning helium.
Right, but your light is changing. You notice the change in the color.
Well, that would be the result of a helium chemical compound reaction on the sun? It's still fusion, right?
Yeah, but you're still going to get a light differential and change in the spectrum because it's a different gas and it's burning, so light's going to reflect through it a little differently.
Okay.
Which again, what would you say, just for layman's purposes, guys, what would be your theory on what the sun would look like if we did not have the artificial lighting system? What would it look like, do you think?
It'd be a lot darker. You wouldn't be nearly as bright, and it would be a very interesting look. I think your glow would be more reddish in hue than it would.
Well, we've got that on the sunsets and sunrises around the world.
Yeah, it's like there's this very small sliver right when the sun has to fall down the horizon that for some reason the lighting system obviously can't work anymore because it's going to be hitting that horizon. So as the lighting system gets blocked momentarily as it falls below the horizon, the sun shows its true color, which is almost red.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, here in the mountains, we've gotten a lot of snow up there, and last week was very eerie when the sun hadn't even broke the horizon, but what we had was this it was a pink to almost rose hue to the mountains. They had this rose-colored hue, pink hue to the which was the light.
Yeah, and I think the second thing I would like to point out as a layperson too, as I go back to the data that we see here, when you look at November even, let's go back to the November table here. Sorry about that, I'll get to it here. You'll notice in the November, you're getting this more and more distinct connection point with the sun, with that, I'll call it the southern hemisphere of the sun, but this is positive, this is negative, and basically it's becoming more and more defined. So what I would say that this, now that I'm getting better educated on this, I would have to correct everything and say what we're seeing here is the interaction between our sun and a brown dwarf, and the prediction would be that our sun would continue to dim, balancing it to become a brown dwarf, okay, until this thing hits its closest point, and then the sun will slowly increase in light and energy as it departs from us. What do you guys think?
Right. That's but it's not just one body. Like I said, it's several. I don't know how many. This is why you have the expansion, like right there in your diagram. When that chart is flowing, you can almost see where the one source of energy is coming in down there at that 11 mark.
Yep, right down in here.
Right. And you'll notice right behind that you have this very, very large space that really shouldn't be present.
This huge space here should have some activity in it, right?
Right. And it really doesn't. And I think the reason that it doesn't is because